Hey Scrappy Peeps, Suzanna here today for ThermoWeb, and I'm sharing with you a project created using this Metallix gel, and I am going to color that gel to create part of a background for this mom-themed layout. I am going to use some pixie spray on the back of that stencil there, and I'm going to set that aside for at least a minute to dry. Now, I want a triangle shape for the background of my layout, so I have cut out this triangle from using my Silhouette Cameo, and I'm now going to use some of the 1.5 inch purple tape to secure that down so that it doesn't slide. Now I am working on a swimming layout and I want some blue metallic paste. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put down some of the Deco Foil Metallix gel in White Pearl, which is a perfect base and a carrier to be able to add some mist and smush that in. And make sure that you smush it so that you don't get any white streaks, so that the color carries throughout the gel. And then you have created your very own metallic gel. Perfect, right? So I've got my stencil and I'm laying that down, and then I am just going to smush the color through. So one of the problems that I have discovered for myself is that, well, this isn't a new discovery, but one, I'm not patient. And two, the problem with not being patient is that a lot of the stencils that I own from Echo Park are 6 by 6. And a lot of the scrapbook pages that I work on are 12 by 12. And these stencils, in order for them to work, you have to double up. And because of problem number one, my being impatient, I get a lot of smudging. Now, I have to tell you that this is not the product's fault. This is my fault, and this is my impatience because I use the stencil and the stencil smushes into the product that I have not let dry. So that was showing you the shimmer, which you can see in the close-up photos that I use. It is amazing how you still get that beautiful color and shine, even though you have added another mist. So it doesn't water that down. So I have set that aside to let that dry, and while that's drying, I am going to work on constructing bits and pieces of the remainder of the layout. So again, this is triangular shaped. So I have that triangle that I have cut out, and I am using some dies that give the illusion of waves, and cut those from that triangular shape, because I am then going to use my iCraft Ultra Bond adhesive and put that on top of the lighter color. And you can see the rest of that process as it comes up later in the video. So I'm going to set aside those pieces, and I'm going to relay that template triangle on top of my now dry Metallix gel and construct the remainder of the layout. So this is the those pieces that I have pulled, or I'm pulling them apart, and you can see I'm going to lay them just as I cut them on the dark blue on top of that light blue pattern paper there, and that is going to create the bottom part of the triangle. And again, so the idea is to have the illusion of waves through in different colors and textures that extends from the top of the triangle down to the bottom of the triangle there. So you can see there's some very fine detail, and so the best way for me to adhere that is to just put thin beads of the Ultra Bond adhesive, and that is what I'm going to use to adhere that down to that lighter blue piece of paper there. And again, just a light hand with this adhesive, otherwise it does become rather saturated and it can warp the piece that you are working with. It's not terrible, but you also really don't want all of that adhesive to smush out of the sides of the element that it is that you're adhering down. So those 3 different pieces will be adhered down, and I love the way that I was able with the Metallix gel to have that white waves at the top with the metallic gel poking through on the backside, followed by the photos, followed by these darker elements. So it kind of creates that variegated look as you move from the top of the waves down to the bottom of that triangle there. So you can see that smudge that is in the Metallix gel where I overlapped the stencils. I am not bothered by that. You can see it through the white waves, but I do cover some of it up with the photo. I firmly believe in accidents happening, and life is too short to stress out about the small things, and really it's a small thing, and it just adds a unique character to the layout. So now I'm using some Gina K dot adhesive to stick that down. I do go back and forth between adhesives, largely because I have typically been more of a dry adhesive person, but I do like the liquid adhesives for the fine details. So I have pre-cut these other triangles that are going to form the top of the triangle. These are kind of like the turn flags in swimming. And so I am just, again, I'm putting adhesive to the top of the triangle so that it creates some movement and some dimension, and I am using the Gina K dot roller adhesive for that as well. The Gina K is refillable, which I love, so that you waste as little as and put as little in the landfills as possible. And I am just rearranging them here because they're slightly smaller than the space, but I want to create the finished triangle there. So that is the basic background. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to take the white waves that I cut with my manual die cut machine, and I'm going to use the Ultra Bond adhesive again to stick those on top of the metallic gel waves that I have created with the stencils there. What I love about this Ultra Bond adhesive, you'll see in a second, is that I put them down, but once I go to put the photos down, I decide that I want a little bit more of that wave poking out from behind the photos. And so while the Ultra Bond dries really quickly, it doesn't dry too fast, and so you still have time to shift and move things, as I am going to do in a minute here. I am well known for shifting things and moving things, so I like that my adhesive is permanent when I'm finished, but is only semi-permanent while I'm still working. So you can see there, this is where I assess the pattern that the shape that I want to put these photos in, and this is where I realize that I really would like some of that white to be poking out from behind. So you can see from the way that I've looked at my fingers there that the Metallix gel is actually still slightly wet. Again, I will refer to my impatience, and it's okay. The stuff that gets smushed underneath the photos, and that's not a big deal. I like to have when I'm using two photos, and if I overlap them like I'm doing in this particular layout, I like to have dimension between one photo or the other. So I am using some of the iCraft 3D foam squares. These are a perfect way of being able to get that dimension that I'm looking for. And this has a really, really strong adhesive to it. So this photo is not going anywhere, and it is not going to slide in my page protectors once that book is standing upright, because I do store my albums vertically. So I'm just going to peel off the backing there and then plop that photo on top of the other one, as well as the still drying Metallix gel. And again, you can see how strong that adhesive is my finger just got stuck to it, and it stays stuck despite the still drying Metallix gel. So that will complete the layout for the most part. I still need to do the title work, so I'm going to look for some red letters to add some variety of color to the layout. I am going to off camera. So do you see that red striped selvage strip up the top of your screen there? I am going to apply that to the bottom off screen, and I'm going to journal above that. So what I'm figuring out here, what I'm counting, is what the title is going to be. I know I want some of the title to be in those turn flags, the triangles at the top of the layout. And so I'm trying to figure out what word is going to be 4 letters long and somehow incorporates swim mom in there. So the title ends up being Love Being Swim Mom. And then I will just journal briefly about that down below. I had a tough time spacing these out, so I am going to do a little bit of the Suzanna title shuffle in trying to get this to be somewhat symmetrical with even spacing between the letters. I am not overly concerned about these things. Yeah, I can let some things slide, but yeah, it ends up being one of those things that really bothers me after the fact, and I have to go in and rearrange everything. So I might as well do it while it's bothering me. So that ends up being the symmetry that I look for there. So I love the way that I have this triangle that's created on the page, and by putting that red stripe, and you'll see that in the close-ups and the overall photo, that red stripe down the bottom creates some unity of the red up top in that line with the red down the bottom, and kind of draws your eye down the page and creates more of that movement down the page for the continuity there, just well, as a design principle that I like to refer to as to the rationale for why I do the things that I do. You can see what I'm doing in the process video, but I like for you to understand my line of thinking for why I apply the things that I do. So I had 3 different sets of white letters there. I end up going with these because they're the ones that are going to fit within those triangles and stay contained within that space for the most part. So that is the end of the video, my friends. Be sure to pick up some Deco Foil Metallix gel, and that way you can make any color that you want, just like I did today. Thanks for stopping in today. I hope you're doing well. Enjoy the close-ups. Take care.